what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. Across the table, the recording table, good to have us back in person. We went a couple times virtual here, but or at least the distance remote recording, but it's always nice to have it right here. Back in our Mesh studio recording facility is Christopher Fry. Chris, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm looking forward to the fact, I guess, second episode in a row that we get to not worry about trying to find news stories or come up with recommendations. We've got two films, so that's always cool.
Well, like I said last time, we're kind of in our season here where there's just a lot of movies being released that are the kind of movies that we like to talk about and review and share, and get some attention for. This week is no exception. We are going to be reviewing two different films, recent releases that we would like to discuss and share our thoughts with you on. First up is going to be the latest film by writer-director Taika Waititi. It is called Next Goal Wins, starring Michael Fassbender. Then we'll be moving on to our second film, which is the movie Dumb Money, which is directed by Craig Gillespie and starring Paul Dano, among many others as well. So those are going to be the two films we'll be reviewing for you. As always, Chris, we have a lot to talk about, so why don't we go ahead and just get on into it. Chris and I, by the way, are with the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. I was remiss in not mentioning that during a proper introduction at the beginning. Sorry, Chris, I'm just so excited. We have so many movies to talk about this month. And, we're back in the studio. It's just, things are good. So I'm sorry. I got excited. I didn't give the proper introduction I should have.
That's right.
Anyway, hope you can forgive me. And we'll go ahead and get right into our first review. It is the film Next Goal Wins.
It's known as the beautiful game, but let's face it, it's a complicated game, guys. Soccer, as you like to call it, is like life. Next season, I think we have a real shot.
I'm sorry, Thomas, did nobody tell you? You're fired. Good news is, you got two options.
Option one, that's where you're currently at.
Or
American Samoa.
Are you serious?
If you're all alone with a pretty bird.
Oscar-winning writer, actor, and director Taika Waititi has dabbled in both independent cinema with Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People, as well as big-budget blockbusters with MCU entries like Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder. With his latest film, Next Goal Wins, Waititi tells the based-on-a-true-story tale of the American Samoa soccer team who suffered a 31-0 defeat in a World Cup match. Enter Dutch coach Thomas Rongen, played by Michael Fassbender, who takes on the task of trying to turn the team of perennial losers into winners. Alan, what was your experience with Waititi's first foray into the based-on-a-true-story area of cinema?
I kind of want to defer my opinion a little bit because I kind of want to hear yours. I will go ahead and say a few things to set up my opinion before I jump over to you. Let me just kind of set up some things.
So you're not going to deflect offhand. You will. You're not going to plead the fifth. Okay.
This movie is before I saw the film, this movie I feel like is cater-made to me as an audience. I have several elements of this film that on paper looked really, really good to me.
There's no talking animals.
No, there's not. That's the one down thing it has. Okay. That's the one negative it has in its mark. But Michael Fassbender, I really like Michael Fassbender. I'm generally happy to see him in anything he's in.
Okay.
And he has been absent for a little while off the film scene. We talked about him in The Killer, the Netflix film, but that came out actually, I think, after this film did. So they both came out about the same time. Before these two films, we hadn't really seen him in much. So excited for Michael Fassbender. I really like Taika Waititi as long as he's not directing a Marvel movie. I like everything else he does. Okay. I mean, Thor Ragnarok was good, and I know you like it a lot more than I do, but I think we both were pretty down on Love and Thunder.
Right.
But I love What We Do in the Shadows, the original film. I love Hunt for the Wilder People. I like the work that he did on TV with both the What We Do in the Shadows, and I like what he's done in This Flag Means Death. Several other TV shows.
Reservation Dogs.
Yep. Several other shows he's produced or helped direct or something else. So like I like his work, and I like the idea of a quirky, funny, but also I like a good sports movie. I like a good formulaic sports movie. To me, yes, sports movies, you know what to expect. You know if they're played to the standard, you know how they're going to go story-wise. It's all about the telling of the story. Like, how do you tell this story of victory or coming up against great odds and all? So all those factors, Chris, on paper, make me really anxious and excited to see this film.
Okay.
Then I started hearing some early reviews from people, not trying to read reviews or listen to reviews, but I can't help it if I see star ratings that pop up on Letterboxd or whatever.
Right.
And my enthusiasm dissipated pretty fast. So here we are now. I finally got a chance to catch up with this film, and I have opinions, but like I said, I'd like to hold them off. I want to hear from you first. What did you think of Next Goal Wins?
So it's interesting because it's hard to actually judge this film because we've been kind of in blockbuster mode with Taika Waititi, and this is shifting back to that's why I kind of mentioned in the intro, Hunt for Wilder People or something like Boy, which I don't know if you've seen.
I never saw Boy.
I've recommended it on the podcast, and I think we can still find it streaming somewhere, but it's much more of the DIY comedy taken from a certain perspective. And Boy actually deals a lot with his seemingly kind of maybe semi-autobiographical about Taika Waititi himself, maybe. So and his type of humor is kind of like, to me, is a little bit like Monty Python. You either kind of get on the wavelength with it, or you think it's just stupid and silly and it really irritates you. And I can see this. It doesn't, I love Monty Python, so that doesn't happen to me, but I can see people's complaint with it. They just think, oh, that's just dumb. Next Goal Wins kind of returns to that kind of vibe. And for me, I liked it. Now, is it my favorite of his films? No. Do I like it better than Love and Thunder? Yes. And I think you can get on, the wavelength is kind of established right off the bat. Waititi makes kind of a cameo appearance of sorts as kind of a bookending person, kind of talking directly to the camera, kind of establishing, okay, here's the deal. And he kind of, tells a little bit of history about the team going 31-0. And he kind of like jokes about like, oh, this is going to be he kind of makes jokes and kind of acknowledges like that he's made embellishments to the story. So like, no, it's based on a true story, but he is going to have fun with it. He's going to kind of make it his own. And I was like, okay, cool. Now, the movie did have little funny moments here and there that I liked. Could it have been funnier? Yes. I don't typically go in for sports movies like you do. It's not a genre that I'm particularly interested in. Especially when you assume that the reason they're telling this story is because there's a success. It's like, okay, here's this team that struggled and look at what they do. And so it's like, you already kind of know the ending because otherwise why would they bother making a movie of it? I will say that this one kind of turns that on its head a little bit. And also I will say, given the joking intro that he does to the film, actually by the end of the film, and when they do some, typical, not biopic, but typical type thing when it's based on a true story where they put things on screen and you see like, okay, here are some of the real people. I was actually surprised that as much of it seemed to be factual as it was. Specifically, there's one thing that you and I both talked about. You mentioned it. You said your commentary was you like Taika Waititi. You like how he tries to bring different voices, like with Reservation Dogs or with Hunt for the Wilder People, like that New Zealand, Australia type thing. He's just, and Our Flag Means Death, where he tries to bring in different, a way of thinking about pirates differently.
I didn't say that, but that sounds awesome, like something I should have said. So thank you for that.
So I think with this film, there's a character where when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, Taika Waititi is doing his thing with comedy. Cool. He's doing a thing that's telling a smaller story, more of like a New Zealand, Australia. In this case, it's American Samoa, but a diverse story. Okay, cool. Oh, and then I thought to myself, okay, that's cool. But it struck me as like, yeah, that's probably like a token thing that was created. And nope. And so that really, like at the end of the film, my opinion of the film kind of raised up a little bit. Because I was like, okay, it doesn't matter. It's important that he's trying to tell these type stories because otherwise they don't they don't exist. And more of them are being told by different people as well. But I was just like, okay. Yeah. So I think that actually made me appreciate it more than just a lukewarm recommendation or a lukewarm feeling towards it. Yeah. So okay. Now I've kind of rambled.
No, that's good. So you're positive on the film.
I am overall positive on it. Yes,
I am too. Okay. I actually really had a good time with this film.
Okay, good.
I'm a little saddened by all the negative pushback it's getting. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's got some major issues. And I got to say, unfortunately, I think the biggest issue with the film, it's not Michael Fassbender as an actor. No. Hold on. It's not him as an actor. I think his character is poorly written in this film. In that I felt like there were probably 3 different versions of his character at play in this movie. And there were no logical explanations for the transition from character 1 to character 2 to character 3. I felt like Fassbender might have been given 3 different versions of the script during the shooting of a character to play. And like, that's who I'm going to play. And there was no logic as to why this character changed, why he evolved. You get a little understanding towards the end of the film with the reveal, but it's not enough for me to feel like that there was any cohesive storytelling with this main character. I didn't know who he was. I mean, I get a sense of him in the first 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, I got it. I know who this guy is. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, I don't. No, now there's something different about him. Now he's played completely different. Now he's being played a completely different way later in the film. Now he's back to version number 1 for maybe 5 minutes. Then he's back to version 3 for a little bit. It was disjointed, I felt like the performance was. And I like seeing Fassbender do lighter work like this. And I do think he was a good choice for this role. I just wish the role had been better written.
Okay.
A more consistent voice to this character, because I do feel like it was kind of all over the place with him. And that's my biggest beef with the film is that, look, I feel like every other character in the film is almost written as a surrogate character for Taika Waititi. I think the mannerisms, the speech, everything is meant to say, it's kind of like, even like the guy who's the manager, who kind of runs the football club in. That's basically Waititi, okay? The way he talks, his mannerisms, his everything, his explaining of things, it's Waititi. It's just he needed a channel vessel in the film as a person to do that. So, yeah, it's a little generic from that standpoint. We don't really learn tons about a lot of the other players. We don't really get any connection to them. I don't feel that same connection you get with some really good sports movies of, I know who these characters are and I know what's driving them. I didn't get any of that with this film. However, this film was still fun and I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I did laugh quite a bit. There were actually 3 or 4 scenes I did find terribly, terribly funny. And I think it's taking a sports movie, a traditional sports movie based on a true story, adding just enough Waititi quirk to it to make it different and unique. I do like the subversion of how they share the final dramatic moment of the film, the sports side of it, the game.
Sure.
They do something different with it, which I liked because I was just automatically assuming, okay, well, this is going to end just like every other sports movie does, and we'll see how he pulls it off. Turns out he subverted it a little bit. He changed the storytelling mechanism for it, and I liked it. It made it more interesting to me. So I did have a good time with this. I did like it quite a bit. I know some people are saying that Fassbender was miscast. I don't think he was. I think he was the right person to play this. I just wish his character had been better developed, because we really have to base so much of the film on living through his experiences with this whole story. And I felt like I just didn't feel like I knew who his character was for a good part of the film. And that made it tough to really embrace this film at a high level. But overall, I still think it was really fun and I had a good time with it. So yeah, mine is a positive review for sure. Just not if they had fixed the main character situation for me, I think we could have had a really great film. As it is, it's a good, fun film that I enjoyed, but I can't go beyond that. So back to you, Chris. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think it didn't register with me as much as it did with you because I'm so averse to the sports movie genre anyway. And so it was a play, like you mentioned, I really enjoyed Fassbender, and I don't think I've ever seen him do comedy.
Definitely not more broad comedy like this movie is. You know, I mean, there's physical comedy involved. There's one-liners. Yeah, it's never been to that extent.
And so that was so much fun for me. And so I enjoyed it. And I think I will say that, you know, you're pointing it out, and I can say, yeah, his character maybe is a little rough as far as how he goes from one stage or another stage. But here again, something that appealed to me. When the opening moments of the film, I think it's shown in the trailer, he's at kind of a meeting about his work situation, and they have a overhead projector,
which is great.
And they're putting up like, okay, you've basically been fired, and this is what's happening. It's a review board type situation, and they have an overhead projector, and they lead him through the stages of grief, and like, you know, accepting, and like they keep on putting on
awesome.
And so that kind of thing, it's like, yeah, so. That's the thing. That's kind of how his character is in this movie. He kind of bebops all over the place. It's not a very clean line.
Yeah.
And to me, it didn't bother me because it didn't bother me. And I can see like in a more polished film, or, you know, I could say I love Taika Waititi, but I could say maybe his direction isn't that strong. So maybe that's what it is he didn't kind of.
Well, it could have been, yeah. However it is that
calls
causes character to not be. I felt like there were scenes missing, or there were transition moments that we missed on the character development side. I mean, and also just who this guy is in general. I actually had to read up about this coach afterwards, like the real story, just to kind of really understand. Okay, well, granted, a lot of this character's personality is fabricated. I mean, the guy supposedly was kind of known for being an abrasive coach. Okay. And that's what kind of put him down a path. But the way in the film portrays him as the coach here, it's 1 minute he's portrayed as a coach who's incompetent, then vacillating between that and a really, really good coach who's got anger issues. And that's why people push him aside. Then he's inspiring 1 minute and he's dismissive another. And it's like, I get it. You want to have character development. I'm all for seeing somebody develop, but it's just like we were just ping ponging all over the place during the movie. I didn't feel like there was anything moving him into any kind of development role at all. So that's the thing for me. It's just, I never really got a sense of who he was. I love the opening scenes. I love the scene in the boardroom or meeting room where he got fired. I thought it was great. And I did love that 5 stages of grief, which I thought was brilliantly done.
Sure.
There are some montages and scenes of the team, how poor they were as a soccer team, that I thought were really entertaining and fun and done. You know, yes, very typical, like you would see in a underdog sports movie, but still had a lot of fun to it. Yeah, there were other moments too I thought were just really, really well done. The dealing with the, I guess, quote, star player.
Yeah.
And kind of the trials and tribulations she's going through, and her own, dealing with her own identity issues,
right,
and how that's translating to the team. I thought the way they handled the relationship with the coach and her were really good.
I did too.
I mean, it was confrontive and abrasive at one point, but you understand why, because you understand where the coach is, his background and his mentality at that time.
Sure.
You do see that change, and you do see I think a fairly positive relationship grow. I really enjoyed the putting the team back together montages later in the movie of trying to recruit some players, and just the little team he assembles of people to help him go out and do this. For whatever reason, I love the little kid sidekick who he has with him that he just kind of depends on, and I don't know. There's a lot of great moments in this film. And enough for me to give it a good recommendation. I just wish I knew Fassbender's character better.
Yeah.
And I felt like he could have been a lot more of a throughput for us for the whole film than he was. And Instead, I just kind of felt disjointed. I felt like, okay, well, what version of the character are we going to get this scene? Okay, we're getting the sympathetic, nice one. Okay, great. Which one are we getting next? Oh, now we're getting the hothead, verbally abusive one. Okay, it was just a little ping pongy too much for me on his character, but that, and I don't know the people of this country, never been there. If they're all meant to act and have mannerisms like Taika Waititi does as a person, cool. He captured all of them. I don't feel like they do. I feel like that's a little bit of a caricature might have been laid over all the people in the film. I don't know for sure, but I hope he's doing the people of this country justice in kind of his depiction of them. I don't know.
All I can say is it made me want to go to this country.
Yeah, no, I love the country. I think it's great. I love the people in it. I just don't know if, again, I felt like they were all kind of, he was using the same mold to make every character in this movie. The only differences is this one's much, much larger than this person. This person's smaller. This person's older. This person's younger, but they're basically the same person. That's kind of the way he played these characters. And I hope that's not a disservice to them. I hope it's not I don't know. I felt a little weird with it at times that there just wasn't a lot of development on any of them beyond a very, very broad stereotype of things. But,
when I think, I guess going in, I kind of felt like that's the type of movie it's Cool Runnings, but set on a soccer field.
yeah.
And so I kind of knew that I wasn't going to get, and I knew that it was even maybe more so than Cool Runnings, even though they had John Candy and it was supposed to be funny. I felt like, yeah, this is jokes and a little bit of trueness to it. But other than that, that's not what they're going for. So, I'm glad that he still can make films, because I feel like, if anything, this was like a film for Taika Waititi. They say some directors, they do big projects and they go and do one for them, one for me type thing. And I feel like, based on like kind of how he does stuff, I feel like this was probably one for him. And I'm glad he was able to make it. And I found it enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, if I could see if you're actually going to it because you think it is going to be a more typical sports movie or something, you're coming away like, dude, that was not good.
Right. It's not the stereotypical sports movie. If you're looking for that, it's not that. It's not the stereotypical comedy.
No,
either. It's a blend, and I think he does a good job of blending it all.
Sure.
Makes it just quirky enough where it's entertaining and engaging, and it keeps up that quirk even to the end of the film.
And I think actually it could maybe become somewhat of maybe a cult film, because the more I sit here and think about it, I can think of all these little moments that make me laugh. Kind of like an Anchorman type situation where, yeah, the movie's good and it has funny parts, but then the more you kind of let it sink in, like I could sit here and do like a Chris Farley, hey, Alan, do you remember that moment? Oh, that was good. Do you remember that moment? Oh, that was really funny.
I'll throw out one, probably the one that made me laugh the absolute hardest.
Okay.
Is in the locker room during a very tender, emotional moment.
Yep.
One of the players gets a chance to speak and give
Smiley.
a very, Smiley. And then, the end to his speech was hysterical.
Yes.
And just so good.
Yep. And see that to me, it's like, nope, that's what this film's doing. It's not, I mean, yes, there is some heartwarming stuff in it, but it's about being funny. And that's
because I honestly thought as that scene started, I'm like, oh, we're going down.
Oh, sure.
We're going to do the typical sports movie. It's going to be this emotional speech. And then when it gets abrupted the way it does, it was like, oh yeah, no, that's right. I forgot we're in this kind of movie. And that's cool.
Taika Waititi's directing this.
Yeah, we're cool.
That's right.
Yeah. So okay, good. I think we're on the same page with this.
I think so.
I think we had a really good. I think we had a good time with it.
Sure.
I am surprised by the negative feedback on it, and I'm just. I want to dig a little deeper. Again, I haven't read any reviews or listened to any detailed reviews to see why people feel the way they do, or other critics feel this way, to kind of down on this movie. But I had a good time with it.
And I know we said
it was
at the
fun.
top of the show that we're not doing any news items. However, I do want to ask you, because this has been kind of floating around in there. Taika Waititi talking about his time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and people have begun being disturbed or maybe worried about the fact that one of the things that supposedly he's working on is a Star Wars film.
Yes.
What are your brief thoughts on that? So you've seen how he's kind of returned to a genre that's, returned to an area of film where it's smaller, independent. When he goes back to making a big budget movie, which I would assume a Star Wars movie would be, How do you feel about that?
Like I think the guy can do. I think the guy could work in any genre and with any franchise we need him to.
Got you.
It's just going to be how much of his are we going to get something more in lines of the characters that we have in his more independent, smaller films and working with actors and I think getting good performances out of things, or are we going to get let's go over the top with silliness and
Right.
Humor. I can't imagine the Star Wars franchise kind of going down that path. So I'd be curious to see what he can do with a more straightforward science fiction drama, action drama movie like a Star Wars film. Be curious. I'm curious. I can't say I'm positive or negative on it. I'm just curious.
Sure.
Thor: Love and Thunder really just made me believe he doesn't need to do. The problem I always had with the two Thor movies he did is again, I don't feel like he knew how he wanted to play the character of Thor. He was a little clear in Ragnarok. Thor was going to be a little dim-witted, a little kind of a secondary character to everything else going on around him. But in Love and Thunder, he tried to give Thor a kind of like, I felt like with the Fassbender coach character here. It's kind of like, okay, one minute he's a very noble, heroic character. The next minute he's kind of goofy and lunkheaded. And it's like, it's just whatever serves the scene that Waititi wants to set up, whatever sets up the joke, that's who this character is going to be.
Okay.
That's kind of where I felt like he was with Fassbender's character here too. It's like, okay, in this scene, I need him to be this sympathetic, very strong coach. But in this next scene, I kind of need him to be a doofus, or I kind of need him to be idiot, because that's what plays better for this scene. And it's like, well, that's not really a consistent character. And I think there's the same issue with Thor in those two movies as there was with the Fassbender character here. So that's my issue with it. I think he uses the characters he needs to make his punchline, joke, or scene work. And it's not as important to have a strong character development arc for someone.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Okay. So anyway, how that applies to Star Wars, I don't know, but I'll still be anxious to see what he does.
So I think safe to say it'll probably be different.
Yeah, I hope it is. I hope we don't get something that looks like something that J.J. Abrams did. It just has one or two quick little Waititi moments in it. No, I want something a little different. It can be something with a different style, a different tone or feel. I don't even mind if the movie is a little more lighthearted and can be a little more less heavy. I mean, I think Star Wars movies could actually probably benefit if there was a one or two thrown out that were just lighter in tone and not having to carry this entire saga for decades on its shoulders. So
Sure.
Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, we will see what happens with that if that movie even happens. I mean, again, it's every Star Wars project seems to be you kind of roll the dice whether it's actually going to happen or not. So yeah. But that is Next Goal Wins. Sounds like Chris and I were both relatively positive on it and had a good time with it. I did see some issues with character development and especially with the main character's role, but it was not enough to prevent me from still having a good time with this film. And I think it's a little surprising one that I think, if you're looking for something over the Christmas holiday, kind of a good family, I won't say family, but a good film that the whole family could watch and people or different age groups could watch and still enjoy. I think this is it. I think this is a good one for it. So yeah. All right. That is Next Goal Wins. I don't think it's playing in movie theaters anymore. So it should be available online here, maybe by Christmas time. It'd be kind of nice if it was for that. So, okay, Chris, let's go ahead and move on to our second review. It is the film Dumb Money.
Yo, what up, everybody? Roaring Kitty here. I'm gonna pick a stock and talk about why I think it's interesting, and that stock is GameStop.
I love this guy.
Retail traders have hooked into GameStop. I think they think it's a good investment. It looks like there's one guy driving all the buying.
Who is this schmuck?
Dumb money, man.
Happy to take it.
Vlogger Keith Gill, played by Paul Dano, sinks his savings into GameStop stock and posts about it. Social media aids his posts in going viral, upending his life and the lives of everyone following him. As a stock tip becomes more of a movement, things get a bit out of control. Director Craig Gillespie has made miniseries with the real-life stories of Mike Tyson, Pamela Anderson, and Tommy Lee, and he's done a film with the character, or not character, but real-life person of Tanya Harding with I, Tanya. Alan, did this telling of the GameStop stock story keep you engaged, or did you find it less successful than other efforts of Gillespie's at putting real-life events on screen?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I'm pretty familiar with, I think, all of Gillespie's other works.
Okay.
I was a big fan of I, Tanya. I really liked that movie. Thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I really liked the Pam and Tommy Lee series he did on Hulu.
Okay.
The miniseries I thought was also really well done. This is probably the least of those efforts for me.
Okay.
It worked just enough. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm fascinated by the story. I am someone that I knew when this whole situation happened in the news, just like, a year and a half, 2 years ago. I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
I believe, so, yeah, because there are references to the pandemic in the film.
Yeah, so it'd be like 2020, 2021.
Right.
So I remember when this was happening, and I remember reading and listening to a lot of podcasts and trying to understand, okay, exactly what's happening here. I'm trying to understand the mechanics of how this happened. And I will tell you, I think the movie does a good job of telling you the mechanics of how this happened. For the most part, I understood it. I followed it. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get kind of what's happening here. I see how this happened. It did add a human face to things I've been reading in the news from a couple years ago. But the problem with the film for me, the reason I just don't think it works as well as it could is it kind of comes down to characters again. I mean, I know these are real life people, but I feel like we're just kind of thrown into a story that's already kind of happening and already rolling. We don't really understand the stakes involved with a lot of people. I mean, we see a lot of money flowing up on the numbers on the chart. We see a lot of people talking about the money, but I don't ever really feel like we got any sense of why this was important and what this means. I'm being told why it's important and what it means, but I'm not being shown or have any feeling to it. You know, I see what are supposed to be, quote, the good guys in the film, the people who are banking on GameStop and they're putting their personal money into a stock because they kind of want to stick it to Wall Street and say, no, you can't make this company go out of business. You can't push this out. We're going to fight for it. We're going to put money into it. And we want, and then they start making money because of that, because of the number of people and all the influence that this blogger had kind of building up enthusiasm for it. But all of these people are treated in very, very short vignettes, which I understand. There's a lot of people you're covering in this film. There's a lot of viewpoints you want to carry. You can't really develop each character a lot, and you can't really give a tons of their backstory. But even like the main character, Keith Gill, I felt like we're kind of just thrown in. I don't really get a sense of why any of this was important to him or why he did it so important strongly like he did until like maybe the very end of the film when he gives a short testimony in front of Congress.
Right.
At that point, I'm like, oh, well, that might have been some good insight to have about this character an hour and a half ago, because I might have felt a little bit more about this movie. So anyway, I think it does a serviceable job of explaining the situation. It does absolutely paint the good guy, bad guy strokes pretty
broad,
thick, pretty thick. I mean, when the bad guys, the scenes you see them in, they're sipping champagne and playing tennis outside. Yeah, okay, you know how they're being painted in the movie right away. And I never think that's fair. I think there's obviously some nuance in there to kind of share, but we don't really get the nuance. I think the character that was interesting for me is Seth Rogen's character as Gabe Plotkin, who is painted as an enemy, but yet it's also, when I hear more about his story and involvement, I'm like, well, and I kind of feel a little bad for the guy, because I do think this is someone who kind of worked really hard to get where he is and tried to do good for business. I think there were some outside pressures and other people involved with him that kind of were more dangerous to the situation than he was. But the film is just pretty clearly saying, nope, there's a line. Everybody on this side is bad. Everybody on this side is greedy and all this. And then everybody on this side are heroes and people trying to fight for the good. Mm. I think it's I don't think it's quite that black and white, but anyway, dumb money. It's fine. I think it gets the job done, but I would have liked a little more out of it. I would have liked a little more feeling. I would have liked a little more understanding, a little more emotion of why people are doing the things they're doing, as opposed to just explaining how it's happening. Because I got a pretty good, clear picture of that from the film. So, all right, I rambled, Chris. Sorry. What's your thoughts on this film?
Well, interestingly enough, it's kind of, I think we're roughly feel the same way about the film overall. It's kind of a okay film, but my reasons for not appreciating it more, not getting more out of it were, it seems like, and it's maybe, I know what the stock market is, but outside of that, I don't really know a lot about it. I remember, like you were saying, I remember when this was happening, my son knew about, he's the one who told me about it. He's like, hey dad, did you know GameStop? I was like, do what? And like, so he kind of told me about it. And then I started hearing about it in the news. I'm like, oh, this is real. I guess I kind of I thought, there were some funny moments in the film and it was entertaining to me, but I was hoping for a little bit of education as well. And I don't feel like I came kind of like a Big Short type thing where you remember that film talked about.
The Big Short did a really good job of that.
The Big Short used the real estate crisis and what they did with the real estate bubble and how that affected things. And I felt like I came away with it like, oh, got you. Okay. And so with this, I understand, there's one side, the little people, the dumb, which if one thing I will say to this movie, I learned where the title came from. Dumb money. The retail investors, the dumb money, they were trying to support GameStop against what they felt like were these big hedge fund people tearing it down. Okay, that I got, but I knew that before I went in. My question was, and I watched this with my wife, and she was the same way afterwards. The whole concept of shorting, I wish I understood more.
Yeah, I'll admit that
because I was like,
they were not good on that.
Like, I understand they say we're shorting stuff. Okay, but what does that mean?
Yeah, and that really was the big, if you don't understand that concept, then it's like, how does this all work? It kind of falls apart in a way as a film, as a storytelling, because it's like, okay, well, how does raising the stock price and making the stock more valuable hurt the quote bad guys?
Right.
Okay. And there again, people understanding of the stock market.
They said it was going to short. Like,
right.
I get that.
Yeah,
and
but what does that mean, and why is that bad?
Early on, when they can tell that people, these retail investors are putting money into it, he kind of laughs over the phone with one of the hedge people. He's like, and the guy's like, "Oh, what'd you do?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I just shorted another $6 million, I don't know, however much in stock." And I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean?
Well, and also there's a little bit of the disconnect. Again, I understood just because I had read up and kind of got familiar with this whole concept, but watching it with somebody else in my family who was not aware, it's the same question. It's like, okay, so how is it that this one stock, and I know there's a reason for it, but we don't understand it from the film. How is it that by growing and inflating the price of this one company's stock, all of a sudden is putting this multi-millionaire hedge fund guy out of business?
Right.
Like, how does that even work? I understand how it works because I've read up and understood. But again, I think people watching the movie, there's a disconnect there. And it's like, it's hard to understand the impact on either side if you don't understand what's triggering one or the other. And I think I never feel like a film has to completely do a top to bottom education on every topic it wants to share. No. But this is a film that I think kind of depends on it. I think if you don't buy the concept of what's happening, it's really tough to follow the characters and to feel any emotion for either side of it.
Because unlike Next Goal Wins, which I wasn't going into expecting to really learn a lot, or I knew that was going to be a comedy, this one I kind of went into with the expectation of, no, I'm going to learn a little something, and there may be some funny stuff, but it's more about learning how this happened and why it happened. And instead, to me, it was treated more kind of like a broad comedy. I liked Seth Rogen and his portrayal of this guy who, of the hedge fund people they showed, there was Nick Offerman was playing one and Vincent D'Onofrio was playing another one. He was kind of the guy that was the least informed or maybe the least talented. The other ones were much more well off, and he was on their side, but yet he was kind of the one that was a little bit more taken surprise and ended up losing a lot more.
Right. It's the one you kind of felt a little sympathy for. But again, if I had known, and I think if they explained the mechanics a little bit better, I probably wouldn't have had that sympathy. Because it's like, this just seems like a guy who's like, all right, I made a business decision. And now the entire internet is like plotting against me and I'm going to be bankrupt, Right. But then again, when you hear him talk to his wife, and it's like, well, how much money did we lose today? He's like, well, like $1 billion. I'm like, oh, you lost $1 billion, but you're still good. But they lost $1 billion. It's like, all right, how am I supposed to feel about that? Because I don't have any background knowledge of how this guy, anything about him. So is this something I should feel bad for him? Or is this something I should be like, yeah, good for you, man. Stick it to you. You lost $1 billion.
Well, I think that's the shortcoming of the film. And I think I wanted to like this film more. Of course, I always want to like every film I watch. I don't want to just watch a film to tear it down. And I thought it was okay. But yeah, like you're saying, it's like it's more about being funny and creating that mob mentality of, oh yeah, let's just watch these guys lose a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And cutting the scenes together, them all like freaking out about them. Well, specifically Seth Rogen's character freaking out. And conversely, showing the dumb money people, the retail investors, showing them getting all excited about all the money. And it's like the movie really devalues itself, like the stock, because all it is becoming more base, where I was wanting something. They were dumbing down dumb money.
I think you described it right there. They put this,
So-
they made this whole story into a very base level, good versus bad. These people are good. These people are bad. You want to see these people celebrate victory. You want to see these people lose. Okay. That's fine. That's a formula that has worked for movies and stories for centuries. But this film needed more than that, I think, to really work. I think it can't just be everybody that's watching on a computer screen are good people and you need to cheer for them because they're making money. And everybody who's sitting in a giant mansion, sipping champagne and eating luxurious food and playing tennis, you got to pull against. Okay,
Right.
well, I need a little more nuance than that to understand why. Why am I? Yeah, I need to know why a little bit more. So
I was kind of shocked too when you have, unlike, again, keep going back to Next Goal Wins, but to me they're both based on true stories. So there is that plot or thing of comparison. That had one actor, Michael Fassbender. You said that was one of the reasons you were excited about it. The cast list on this film was insane.
Oh, it's great.
You had
Yeah.
Paul Dano, Pete Davidson, America Ferrara, Vincent D'Onofrio. We've already talked about Seth Rogen, Nick Offerman, Anthony Ramos was in it as well. Sebastian Stan plays somebody that works, or one of the founders of Robinhood, which is an app, which I knew that little bit too about. See, that's the thing, I knew very little about. I knew the surface details. My son told me when I walked by his room, and he told me in a minute what was going on.
Yeah.
I felt like this film basically did the same thing. Oh, here's Robinhood. Here's how they're doing it. Oh, okay,
that's true.
But then, okay, what was that app set up to do? I get it, but there's so much more potential.
Look, here's the thing: somebody who doesn't know anything about the stock market. And somebody who doesn't know anything about Robinhood as an app, this movie is not going to make any sense to anybody. All you're going to know is good people making money, bad people losing money. That's all I know.
Right.
And again, I just don't think that's enough. A couple other actors you were mentioning. We had Shailene Woodley plays the wife of our main character. We've got Dane DeHaan, which I did not even recognize for the longest time. I was trying to figure out.
He's been gone for a while.
Yeah. But also the fact that he's behind a mask, because this is during pandemic time it takes place. But yeah, and he, it was interesting performance because I hadn't seen him in a while and did not recognize him until about 2/3 of the way through the movie and figured out who it was.
Right.
So yeah, the cast list is great. Although many of the cast, shot their stuff probably in a day or two,
True.
from one location.
True.
That's that's the convenience of a film like this. And when you're showing people from all around the country on the internet, you just need to get them in their one location, their one scene for a couple of days, and you get everything you need, and you just blend them all together, and you're able to show all this montages of different people from different places. I like it. I like that format. That works for me. I like the variety of characters we saw, but again, I just think the film needed to do a little more.
Well,
and
I felt when they were showing the hedge fund side of things with, I felt like that was clear enough. The Robinhood side, I felt like that was a little less clear.
Mm-hmm.
They were there and they were an important part, but like they demonize Sebastian Stan's character, but the other co-founder, you don't really get a sense of like, you know, he was obviously an intelligent dude, but like, is he less evil than the one they make out to be
Right.
the evil one? Like,
Well, and then even with the
it's like,
Sebastian,
okay.
the Robin Hood guys in general, it's like, okay, so why are we supposed to know they're evil?
Right.
I mean, seriously, really, because I hear the concept of the Robin Hood app, which I do know about, and I understand how it works. It sounds like it's a good thing on paper. Because like my kids invest in Robinhood. They use the Robinhood app.
Right.
It's a great way for people who don't have thousands and thousands of dollars. They just want to put $10 in and $20 in and invest and get a part of the stock market. Sounds like a pretty good deal. And we're given some little glimpses of information of why maybe Robinhood's not good, but it's never really clearly laid out why we're not supposed to like these guys.
And maybe that's because that's a movie all on its own.
Maybe.
It's all like a documentary about
But
Robin
instead,
Hood,
I think the film was a little lazy in just saying, I'm just going to give you a scene where these guys kind of flounder in an interview and kind of say some things that sound a little devious and a little evil, and we're going to make insinuations that they're bad, and that's all you need to know.
Right.
Is that they're bad. That's all you need.
They're going to gloss over
The
stuff.
viewer just needs to know that they're bad, and that's it. And I'm sorry, it's just not enough to make this film work as well as it could. So
when I felt like they were, in one sense, I felt like they were also kind of generalizing the type of people that were investing in GameStop. And I understand they can't show everybody that was investing because that's the whole point. There were lots of people, but I felt like they actually took on, in a way, one too many examples. The GameStop employee, I could see that because it's like that way you got an insight to what was happening at the store itself.
a little bit, not enough, but a little bit.
So
Yeah.
that investor understood. The other one that I liked was the American Ferrara who plays a nurse.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like giving you a little bit of like, okay, this time period wise, because it was the whole vaccine and the COVID and everything. But you saw from her perspective what she was trying to do. So it kind of, and then of course you have Keith Gill, the guy who, Roaring Kitty, which was his
Roaring
on
Kitty,
screen.
yeah.
So you have those three. But the ones that actively irritated me.
The college students.
Were the college students. Because I actually kind of got annoyed at them like I was getting annoyed at the hedge. Like they wanted you to get annoyed at Seth Rogen's rich guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because these kids just seem to be very like surface or whatever. And they do try to at one point kind of, after the movie's kind of winding down a little bit and they try to show you how some of the investors were hurt, some of the dumb money people were hurt. And she goes on this thing about her father and like his business. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a little too late for me because they'd already kind of, every time they were on screen, I kind of rolled my eyes. So
I definitely can hear that. They didn't bother me as much because I at least liked the fact that there was a little more variety. It wasn't all just downtrodden people that were in like really tough parts of their lives trying to climb back out, because that's kind of what we got with the GameStop employee and we got with the American for the two college students. Is kind of like, yeah, they're in a lot of debt because they're going to a really nice big college. They're getting a great education. They're going to have good careers whenever they get out of school, I'm pretty sure. So I didn't mind showing two people that were kind of blasé about it. It's like, oh, let's just invest for fun. Let's just do this and see what we get. Oh my gosh, we made some money and now let's sell it. Okay, great. We made money. I was okay with that because I didn't want it to be just all the good people that we see are all just people we're supposed to feel sympathetic for. I mean, I didn't mind the college students being ones I'm like, oh yeah, just random people are just investing too.
I'll say, okay, but I got that from, if I were to totally delete them from the film, I still got that from the outcome of some of the other people because not everybody walks away from this thing. Not all the dumb money people walk away with a lot of money. Not all of them do.
I did like the conceit, the showing the net worth of each person.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a clever way of saying, look, here's where we started.
Yeah.
And here's where they are now at the end. And it was a great way of like not just saying, giving me some title card of like, well, this person did this, this, and this, and this at the end. It's like, nope, here's their net worth at the beginning of the movie. And now here's their net worth now. And this is because of the actions they took or didn't take at the end of the movie. I thought that was kind of obviously a movie so focused on money and finances. That's a great way to give me that beginning and end point for each character and kind of visually show that.
One thing too, that I've heard some detractors talk about for the movie was that even though this was very it was a movement that was pushed forward by social media, by, like chat rooms or by like web chat rooms on Reddit or whatever, like, stuff like that helped push it forward. I felt like in TikTok, I felt like at times that got to be a little like cluttered and didn't really add anything to the movie and actually got annoying. But maybe that's the whole point, is like the noise ratio of all social media, like when things were happening and how they were like saying all these terms of like, hold, but hold is misspelled on purpose. And like all these like memes and stuff, it kind of it didn't add anything, it took away. But there again, maybe that's the whole point, is the noise of social media kind of adding fuel to the fire. But
yeah. I think this is a movie that, the movie felt very packed and full of things and busy, but I felt like this is a movie that didn't do enough.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I think that you probably could have trimmed out some of the secondary characters, some of those other people, like you mentioned. If you want to trim out the college students, you want to trim out a couple, maybe one or two of the quote bad guys, their side. Yeah, and just kind of thin down the number of characters, but then really spend a little more time explaining why we're supposed to feel the way we do and why certain actions are going to have certain ramifications on certain people.
Sure.
That would be helpful. I think that would make the movie a little more successful at the end of the day. They did show at the end of the film, you do get to see some real life footage of many of the characters from the film.
Right.
I was actually, it was surprising to me. I feel like for my age, my age and where I am in life, I do spend a fair amount of time on the internet. I tend to feel like I'm pretty up on internet culture and what's happening out there, but yet I'd never seen or heard of Roaring Kitty.
Roaring Kitty.
And seeing his videos at the end, the real character, I'm like, oh wow, okay, this actually was pretty spot on. Like not only congressional testimony, all the things. I'm like, no, this is pretty spot on. So I give it that credit for that. That was good.
Yeah.
It needed more. It needed more sharing and explaining. Not too much, but just enough to at least help me understand the dynamics of why we're supposed to feel the way we do.
Sure.
And why these characters' actions was going to have the ramifications it was going to have on other characters. Does that make sense?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
That's kind of where I am with it. So,
okay.
But overall, it was fine. It's like, I hate saying that, but it was fine.
Right. I mean, I like at least that we're not tearing them down as terrible movies. Neither.
No, it's not a terrible movie. Again, if this movie's on and I'm somewhere, I'll watch parts of it. I'll see some of it again. There's some moments I liked.
Yeah.
I'll give it this much. I have been on record on this show with my lack of total admiration for Pete Davidson as an actor.
Well,
we haven't mentioned him yet.
He's playing Pete Davidson.
He is playing prototype, stereotypical Pete Davidson.
Yeah, and stoner, foul mouth.
Hey, he played it fine. I mean, it was good. He played his part fine. I did like some of the humor involved with his DoorDash job, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, I did like that part. That added just enough. And Vincent D'Onofrio, getting to see him play a character that I've never seen him play before.
Yeah.
A very different type of character than we're used to seeing for him, which was good and fun too.
It was a tease for me because he's featured in the preview and he's in the movie, but I wanted more Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I was glad, like you did, he probably filmed his stuff in a day.
I think each of these characters, every actor outside of Paul Dano probably had like a couple of days filming, maybe, to do their scenes because it's an ensemble piece where you've got probably 12 different characters we're following at any time. So yeah, it's going to be a short screen time for most people.
Sure.
So, yeah. All right. Well, that's Dumb Money. It is available online right now for rental or purchase. So you can see it anytime you'd like. Only because we're approaching the holiday seasons and I know I get recommendations about films to see.
Sure.
This is not one for the family. It is a lot more extreme language than I expected it to be.
You know what's interesting? Because I know we're wrapping up, but I do want to comment on that. Early on, the music choices that were used, and my wife was like, wow. I'm like, well, I wonder if they're doing some of that because otherwise this is going to be a PG-13 movie and they want to gear it towards make it more cool.
The songs they're using very explicit language, like right in the beginning,
right from the get-go. Yeah. So I wonder if that was I can't help but think that was an intentional choice to make stuff
Could
a little
be.
so it's skewed more.
Well, and again, it's just peppering in as much profanity as you can throughout the movie. I'm just saying it is harsh on the language
Sure,
side, but
absolutely.
Again, I don't feel like we're not trying to play parents here and tell people.
Yeah.
It's just I know a lot of times people listen to reviews to see, oh, hey, the films we could watch over holiday season with family. I'm like, this one maybe just keep for the grown-ups,
Right.
for the adult ones. But
Yeah.
but it's an interesting story.
Sure.
I'm glad they made a movie about it. I do feel like I understand the story a little bit better than I did going in. I just wish it had gone a couple extra steps with the explanation, and being not so cut and dry on the good and bad side of the coin. I need a little more understanding of the nuances between these groups. So,
And I apparently just need to break down and go to Wikipedia and learn about shorting stocks because apparently I can't rely on Hollywood to tell me what
it's
it
a tough concept. I mean, it's a tough concept. That's why they make a whole movie called The Big Short about it. And they spend a third of the movie sitting down and explaining things to you because it is a complicated concept. It's just that this movie does depend on you knowing that to really understand the story. And it's tough that it didn't really give us enough with that. So, yeah.
Got you.
All right. That is Dumb Money. And that is our second review. That was all we had lined up for today, Chris. So kind of feel weird ending the show after a review because we normally talk about other stuff, but
True.
we had a lot to say about both of these two films, which is good. I'm glad we had good reviews of those. Next Goal Wins. I think we definitely came out of the two much more positive on that film. And that one's a good one, a good time to have that we enjoyed. Dumb Money. Serviceable film that works at some level, but really missed some opportunities to make it something good and could have been a lot better for sure. So, Chris, if anybody has some thoughts on these two films, they've seen them, they want to challenge us on our opinions, they want to have a spirited debate about either of the two of them, because I feel like there's probably going to be more spirited debate about these films out there. How can they get a hold of us to do that?
You can do all of that, or maybe explain to me in a short email what shorting is.
Oh, explain in a short email
yes.
the concept of
Yeah,
shorting. Yes,
right.
good.
Info, you can run an email to info@footcandle.org. You can also follow us on Twitter @FootCandleFilm. Facebook, we're a Foot Candle Film Society. Instagram, Threads, we're just simply Foot Candle Film. Alan and I are on Letterboxd. That's Letterboxd without that final E, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. Do us a favor. Give us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcasts on, because that'll help us reach new listeners, and we'd appreciate it. Last but not least, Alan did kind of mention that one of the things we're co-founders of is the Foot Candle Film Festival. It'll be September 20th through the 28th in 2024, so I know that's a long way off, but if you're a filmmaker or a scriptwriter, submissions are now open over on Film Freeway, so go over there and check it out and try to give us a submission.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will look forward to talking to everybody next time we get together. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.